My daughter said she felt safer with me, but her mom filed to take her anyway.
Hi, I'm Mark, 41, and 3 weeks ago, my teenage daughter texted me a single line that shattered everything I thought I knew about my family. Dad, Nana says I don't have to listen to you anymore. My divorce from Celia had been brutal. 2 years of lawyer letters, accusations, emergency court dates, and one unforgettable day when our daughter, Avery, locked herself in the school bathroom to escape the screaming match that erupted during pickup. But after all that, we'd landed on something resembling peace. Joint custody, alternating weeks, clear rules. Celia's mother, Barbara, or Nana B as Avery used to call her, was always involved. And by involved, I mean she showed up unannounced, challenged my parenting, and once tried to redecorate Avery's entire bedroom while she was at school because, and I quote, "These colors aren't healthy for a developing young woman." But after the divorce, I set boundaries. She wasn't allowed in my house, period. Apparently, she decided that rule didn't apply to her anymore. It started with small things. Avery would come back from her mom's with a new, expensive necklace or a manicure I hadn't approved. Once, she came home talking about how college was optional if you were pretty and learned how to network right. I chalked it up to Celia's influence. Until the text. Dad, Nana says I don't have to listen to you anymore. I reread it 4 times while standing in the canned soup aisle at Safeway, holding a dented can of lentils I'd never buy. I called immediately. Avery picked up on the second ring, sounding defensive. "She didn't mean it like that, Dad." "What did she mean then, Ave?" She says I'm old enough to decide things on my own, that you're too strict, that Mom agrees with her." "And what exactly did I do to get labeled too strict? Did I forget to restock the Capri Suns?" She sighed. You wouldn't let me go to that concert, and you said I had to finish my AP homework before the sleepover." "Because your grades were slipping. That's parenting, not prison. She just thinks I should be able to choose." The next day, I showed up at Celia's house, unannounced, Barbara style, and let's just say things escalated fast. Celia accused me of trying to control Avery with rules, and Barbara stood in the hallway smirking like a villain in a Disney Channel movie. I said, "If you're encouraging my daughter to disobey me during my parenting time, we have a serious problem." Barbara, ever the queen of calm chaos, responded, "Oh, Mark, relax. You're making a mountain out of a parenting molehill. I'm simply empowering Avery to make her own decisions. You're undermining her father." Celia crossed her arms. "Maybe if you weren't so rigid, she wouldn't feel the need to choose." "Choose?" I looked between them. "Choose what exactly?" That's when Barbara dropped the bomb. "We've spoken to a lawyer. There's a possibility Avery could request a change in custody." Everything went cold. They were trying to take her from me. I drove home with my fists clenched so tight on the steering wheel, I didn't realize they'd gone numb until I pulled into my driveway. My house, quiet, clean, half-decorated from the weekend I tried to repaint the living room with Avery before she bailed halfway to go shopping with Nana, felt like a crime scene. Every picture frame looked like evidence. I didn't sleep that night. I spent 3 hours rereading our custody agreement like it was the Bible. Page 14, Clause D. Neither parent nor associated family members shall interfere with or override parenting decisions during the other's custodial period. It was there in black and white. Barbara didn't just cross a line, she took a flamethrower to the damn thing. The next morning, I called my lawyer, David, a calm, balding man with a dry wit and a secret rage he reserved for cases like this. When I explained what was happening, he didn't even let me finish before cutting in. "She's laying the groundwork for a custodial flip, probably trying to build a case that you're too controlling or emotionally unsafe. Have you noticed any documentation requests from Celia? Emails about small parenting decisions? Anything that feels like a setup? Last week, she asked if I still had Avery on the same diet plan, said she was worried about protein intake." David made a noise like he'd been stabbed in the lung. "That's classic. She's gathering concerns to present to a judge.
We need to get ahead of this. Full documentation. Start journaling every interaction, every pickup, every text, and I want screenshots of that message from your daughter, today." I did exactly that. I also did something I probably shouldn't have. I went to Avery's school. I told myself it was just to bring her lunch, something normal. But really, I needed to see her, look her in the eye and figure out if she was in on this or being used as a pawn. I found her on the quad, sitting on a bench with her friends. When she saw me walking up with a Chick-fil-A bag, her whole body tensed. "Dad?" she said, immediately defensive. "Lunch, no strings attached." I handed her the bag and sat beside her. Her friends scattered like birds sensing a storm. "You can't just show up like this," she muttered. "I can when I'm trying to understand why my daughter thinks my rules don't apply anymore." She stared at the fries. "It's not like that." "Then what is it like, Ave? Because you told me I didn't have authority anymore. That came from somewhere." She didn't answer, just picked at her fries. "You're 13, I said, softer. "That means you get opinions, you get input, but you don't get to make the rules. That's my job. And if your grandmother or your mom is telling you otherwise, that's a problem." "You don't understand what it's like over there," she mumbled. "They listen to me. They don't treat me like a baby." I felt something twist in my gut. "You think listening means saying yes to everything? That's not love, Avery. That's a trap." She looked away. "I have to get to class." I watched her walk off, clutching the bag like it was a peace offering she wasn't sure she wanted. And right then, standing in that courtyard full of shouting kids and clanging lockers, I realized I wasn't just fighting Barbara. I was in danger of losing my daughter.
David called me later that afternoon, voice tight. "You need to come to my office, now." I dropped everything, drove across town in under 20 minutes, and found him in his conference room with a stack of papers already waiting. "She filed," he said without looking up. "Celia?" He nodded. "Motion to modify custody. Filed under claims of emotional rigidity, erratic behavior, and, quote, inability to foster a supportive teenage environment." I slumped into the chair. She's framing me as the bad guy because I made Avery do her homework and eat broccoli. David handed me a printout. "They're also claiming you have anger issues." I stared at the bolded paragraph. "Mr. Lang has demonstrated controlling behavior and emotional outbursts in front of the minor, causing distress." I've never laid a hand on her, ever. That's not what they're accusing. They're playing the long game. Emotional environment, subjective fear, distress. It's hard to disprove and harder to ignore in family court. I scrubbed my hands down my face. What do we do? We counter, hard. I want dated texts, parenting logs, academic records, anything that shows Avery thriving under your care. And I'm calling a child psychologist to conduct an independent evaluation. My head was spinning. You think we'll have to go that far? David finally looked at me. "Mark, this isn't just Barbara pulling strings anymore. Celia's playing ball, and that means they think they can win." I went home and did something I never thought I'd do. I emailed Avery. Not a text, not a call, an email. Subject, just you and me. "Hey kiddo, I'm not writing to yell. I'm not even writing to ask for answers. I just want you to know something. No matter what happens, who says what, who files what, you are my daughter. And that means I'm on your side. Even when I say no, even when I'm the mean parent. I love you too much to give you a life without rules, because I know where that road leads. You don't have to reply, but I hope you'll read this and remember it next time someone tries to tell you I don't care. Because that's the biggest lie of all. Dad." She didn't reply, but she read it. I knew it because the next day when I picked her up from school for our scheduled week, she climbed into the passenger seat and didn't say a word, just pulled her knees up to her chest and stared out the window. Halfway home, she finally whispered, "Did Mom really file something with the court?" I nodded, keeping my eyes on the road. "And Nana?" "She's behind all of it." Avery was quiet for a long time. Then, "I didn't ask them to do this."
I nodded again. I know. Her voice broke a little. I just wanted to go to the stupid concert. I pulled over, put the car in park, turned to face her. This was never about the concert, Avery. It's about who gets to shape your life. Me, the parent who's here every week doing the hard parts, or people who want to take shortcuts. She sniffled. Nana says I'm mature enough to decide. I let that hang in the air, then said quietly, if that were true, we wouldn't be sitting in a car right now because your world just exploded and you don't know who to trust. She didn't answer, but she reached over and grabbed my hand. Small, shaky, still my little girl underneath all of it. And that's when I knew Barbara hadn't won yet. The next week was a hellscape of paperwork, meetings, and emotional whiplash. Celia and Barbara's legal team moved fast, too fast, like they'd had this planned for months. David worked overtime, building our counter-argument brick by brick. But what hit hardest was watching Avery slowly pull inward, like a snail retreating into its shell. She wasn't cold or rude, just distant. She'd nod when I asked about homework, smile politely when I made her favorite pasta, but gone were the unfiltered rants about school drama, the spontaneous singing in the shower, the bad jokes she used to tell just to make me groan. It was like she was scared to say the wrong thing, like she didn't know which version of her she was supposed to be anymore. On Wednesday night, after I'd made hot cocoa and set up a movie, our old tradition, she finally cracked. "Why are you fighting so hard?" she asked, not looking away from the TV. The question hit like a sucker punch. "I mean," she went on, voice quiet, "you could just let Mom have more time. Nana says that'd be easier." I muted the TV. "Easier isn't always better, kiddo." She blinked, still not looking at me. "But it's not like you're losing me." "Aren't I?" She finally turned, guilt all over her face. "I didn't ask them to do this," she said, as if saying it enough times might make it feel less heavy. I swallowed hard. "You're allowed to feel things, be mad at me, think I'm annoying. That doesn't scare me. But when other people start using your feelings as weapons, that's when I step in." Silence. Then, "Nana said you'd try to make me pick sides." God, there it was. "No," I said, "that's what she wants. I'm just trying to remind you who shouldn't be making you choose." She looked at me, and for a moment I saw a flicker of the old Avery. Then she asked the question I'd been dreading. "Are they going to win?" I took a breath. "I don't know," I said honestly, "but I do know that what they're doing isn't right, and that truth matters a lot." The next day I got a call from the child psychologist David had recommended, Dr. Marin. Neutral party, court appointed. She needed to speak with Avery one-on-one for evaluation purposes. I prepped Avery the best I could. "It's not a test," I told her. "There's no wrong answers. Just be honest. Say what you feel. Don't try to protect me or your mom." "Okay," she nodded, eyes wary. 2 hours later, I got a call from Dr. Marin. "Mr. Lang, your daughter is incredibly self-aware for her age, but she's also clearly caught in the middle of a loyalty tug-of-war." I gripped the edge of the kitchen counter. That's what I've been afraid of. She's under pressure, subtle but consistent, to speak more positively about her time at her mother's house. She feels like she'll disappoint someone no matter what she says. But she was very clear about one thing. "What's that?" Dr. Marin paused. "She said she feels safest at your house." My throat tightened. "She said that?" "She unprompted. That matters, Mr. Lang, a lot." I thanked her, hung up, and just stood there for a while, blinking hard, feeling a wave of something I hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. Because Barbara had tried to rewrite the story, but Avery still knew where home really was.
2 days later, the knock came at 6:48 a.m. I was in the middle of making pancakes, the one breakfast Avery would crawl out of bed early for, when the front door rattled like someone was trying to enter by force. I wiped my hands or a towel, heart hammering, and opened it to find Barbara standing there in a crimson trench coat, holding a folder like it was a weapon. "You're violating her rights," she said, without even a hello.
Good morning to you too, Barbara, I muttered, stepping outside and closing the door firmly behind me. Avery is asleep, and I'll thank you not to show up uninvited again. She smiled, cold and tight. It's not illegal for a grandmother to visit her granddaughter. No, but it's illegal to ignore the court's temporary no-contact order while there's an active custody case. She waved the folder at me. This isn't about the court. This is about Avery. She's miserable here. She told me so. You're smothering her with your rules and routines and emotionally suffocating her. You're making her afraid to speak up. I didn't respond. I knew better. You don't argue with the storm mid-howl. You board the windows and wait it out. I raised 2 children, Mark. You think I don't know what's best for a 13-year-old girl? I think what's best for her is stability, boundaries, and not being pressured into picking sides between the people she loves. That landed. Barbara's smile dropped. You're going to lose this case, she hissed. I can't compete with what I offer her. A real home, a future, confidence. She's finally starting to see that. And yet, I said quietly, she told the court psychologist she feels safest here. That stopped her cold. She stared at me, blinking fast. That's a lie. It's in the report. You'll see it at the hearing. For a split second, I saw the crack behind the performance, the part of Barbara that wasn't composed or righteous or in control, just a woman who had mistaken love for ownership, influence for affection. Then she snapped the folder shut and turned without another word, stalking off toward her car. I stood in the driveway for a long time, heart still pounding, the scent of overcooked pancakes drifting out the open kitchen window. That night, Avery came into the living room where I was sorting court documents and flopped down next to me. Nana came by this morning, didn't she? I looked at her. How'd you know? She always texts me after she tries to confront you. Says stuff like, Daddy still thinks he can control everything. My stomach dropped. Did she been texting you during the case? Avery nodded. Like constantly. Guilt stuff, memes, even a link to a fancy boarding school she said she might enroll me in once I live with them full time. I stared at her. You told your therapist any of this? No, she said quietly. I didn't want it to make things worse. I took her hand. Kiddo, it's not your job to protect anyone in this mess. Not me, not your mom, not Nana. Your job is to be a kid. The grown-ups are the ones who should know better. Her eyes welled. I'm so tired. I know. And in that moment, I didn't care about court or custody or any of the damn paperwork. I just held my daughter while she cried. Because under all of it, beneath the legal battle, the manipulation, the noise, there was still a scared 13-year-old girl caught in a storm she didn't start. And I was going to make damn sure she knew she wasn't weathering it alone. The first custody hearing arrived on a gray Monday morning that looked like it wanted to rain, but couldn't quite commit. David and I sat at the long oak table inside courtroom 4B, while Celia and her lawyer whispered behind a stack of folders. And Barbara was front and center, dressed like she was running for Senate. Cream blazer, silk scarf, face stretched into a benevolent smile she wore like armor. Avery's not there, thank God. She'd given her input in private to the custody evaluator last week, but her absence didn't make the air any lighter. Judge Rourke entered like thunder, not one for small talk. He flipped through the paperwork like it personally offended him, then looked up at us. Let's talk about this emergency custody modification. Claims of emotional instability, psychological harm, and an unsafe home environment. Miss Hayes, you want to begin? Celia's lawyer stood and launched into a monologue about adolescent freedom, how Avery felt stifled under my care, and my insistence on routine and structure was damaging her confidence. She's 13, Your Honor, he said dramatically, and needs a nurturing environment that fosters emotional independence, not one dominated by rigid schedules and authoritarian parenting. David didn't even flinch. When it was our turn, he simply stood, held up the evaluator's report, and read, The child expressed a consistent sense of safety and emotional stability during time spent with her father. She described his household as predictable, calm, and a place where she feels heard. Then came the texts, screenshots from Barbara to Avery, over 30 in the past 2 weeks, manipulative phrasing, promises, guilt. Judge Rourke frowned. These messages concern me. Miss Patterson, are you coaching your granddaughter during a legal proceeding? Barbara stood. Absolutely not, Your Honor. I'm merely offering her emotional support. She's 13. You sent her a real estate listing for a condo and told her she'd have her own room once she was free. That's not support. That's coercion. Even Celia looked rattled. The judge looked at me next. Mr. Lang, why do you think your daughter is safest with you? I didn't recite anything rehearsed. I just said, because I'm the only one in this room not asking her to choose. And for once, Barbara didn't have a single thing to say.
Judge Rourke didn't rule that day. Instead, he scheduled a follow-up hearing and ordered a temporary gag on all direct communication between Barbara and Avery. No texts, no calls, no accidental school drop-ins. The courtroom emptied slowly, everyone quiet in that strange post-battle silence, like no one was quite sure who'd won yet. Outside, David clapped a hand on my shoulder. "We held the line," he said. "That's all that matters today." That night, Avery padded into the kitchen while I was rinsing dishes. She hovered for a second, then blurted out, "Nana's mad." I dried my hands slowly. "How do you know?" "She texted Mom, said the judge is biased and that you're turning me into your little soldier." I leaned against the counter. "Do you think that's true?" She looked at me, uncertain. Then, "I think I used to believe her more than I believed you, not because I liked her better, just because she was louder." That hurt more than I expected. "But lately," Avery continued, "I don't know. It's quieter here. I like quiet now." I nodded, unsure how to respond to the sudden grown-up way she said that. Then she pulled something from her hoodie pocket, her phone, and held it out. I blocked her. I took it from her, scrolled through the blocked list. Barbara Patterson. Gone. "You sure about this?" I asked. She shrugged. "I'm not saying forever, just for now." I handed it back and smiled. "Good call." And for the first time in a long time, Avery smiled too. The final custody hearing happened on a Friday that felt like spring finally meant it. Avery stayed home from school, by court order, not to testify, just to stay out of the crossfire. I left her with a sitter and a new sketchbook, told her I'd be home for dinner, and promised we'd get takeout. She asked for sushi. Judge Rourke was all business. David laid out our timeline, the evaluator's report, Barbara's messages, Celia's passive enabling. Every thread pointed to one thing, an environment on the maternal side that disregarded boundaries and used emotional leverage to manipulate a child into submission. Celia didn't say much. Her lawyer did the heavy lifting. She looked tired, like maybe she finally saw the cost of letting her mother drive the bus. Barbara didn't attend. Apparently, after the message ban and being threatened with contempt, she decided to take a step back for now. Translation, she'd finally been cornered, and she hated how it felt. Judge Rourke's ruling was clear. No modification of custody. Joint arrangement remains. All communication between Mrs. Patterson and the minor child to be suspended for 6 months minimum, with review pending documented behavioral therapy and compliance with the court's conditions. David exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for weeks. I texted Avery from the courthouse parking lot. "All done. We're okay. Sushi coming up." She replied, "Soy sauce packets this time. Don't forget." Then a second message. "Thanks, Dad, for fighting." That night, we sat on the couch, splitting spicy tuna rolls and watching The Office, her head leaning on my shoulder like she used to when she was little. No courtroom, no war, just peace. Hard-earned and finally ours.